of introducing our panel. So, Dalia Jaad is a former tech sales professional who followed her passion for movement, leaving the corporate world to build a career in Pilates. Dalia is a Lululemon ambassador and the owner of a boutique Pilates studio in Montreal called Studio Jaad. Welcome, Dalia. Charo Ciampini. Sorry, I had to say it like that. He's a coach, trainer, virtual facilitator, and co-founder of a men's group called Male Movement. He helps people reconnect with their bodies and unlock their potential through movement and transformation. Welcome. Heidi Rubin, aka Captain Fun, is a personal trainer, strength and conditioning coach, Lululemon Legacy Ambassador, and the owner and founder of the Infinity Movement Studio, Montreal's first inclusive gym for the 2S LGBTQ+ and other marginalized communities where consent and mindfulness is top priority. And last but not least, Ben, the mastermind behind this amazing event. My new friend, who we met right before the holidays, he came to a cacao ceremony. Ben you're amazing. You're an amazing community organizer. He's an educator at Dawson. He is also the host of Living Your
Greatness
podcast. Sorry, I was like, I didn't print. Living Your Greatest podcast and the mastermind behind this beautiful event. So I pass it to you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Jazz. Just want to start off that the theme for this series, there's always going to be a different theme every time. That way it's always exciting, it's always fresh. But the theme for today is really on getting started and also staying in it for the long game. So whether you're itching to start or whether you're already in the game right now as an entrepreneur, I'm really excited to bring on these three panelists. So, but before anything, it's better to get a feel and take the time of learning more about each person's story. So to start off, I actually want to get a better feel if we have, at least, enough time to hear each of the stories. But starting off with Heidi, how did you get started? What inspired you, in terms of your creative spark? And if we could just hear your whole story, let's hear it.
How much time do I have?
As much as you need.
I got a lot of different stories, but all of them really do tie together. I'm not the type of person that is, I don't separate things. And that can or may not work for you, but my personal life and my business life, my family life, my dog, everything kind of exists in this strange circular line. I don't have the capacity to separate things, and that's not for everyone, but for me, part of my story is accepting who I am, and it all kind of lives together, which sometimes is tough as a sensitive person, but it's just the way that I have to do it, because if I tried it any differently, I will get very sick. So my story really lies in me first realizing a lot about who I am, what I need to be a sane and healthy person, the kind of people that I want to have around me, the kind of people that I want to serve. And it came to me because of a lot of discomfort, pain, and trauma, in fact. And so I didn't necessarily have the ability to feel safe and comfortable in very normative spaces, but I had to force myself to do that to be able to survive for long enough to be able to make it here. Being in other spaces was making me very sick. And I wasn't able to show up the way that I wanted to because other people were making the rules. Was that a fly? Cute. Being cute, buddy. So yeah, I guess without taking up too much space, it really did come down to necessity for me. What? This guy's the best. You're gonna catch him? So yeah, I would have loved, I tried very hard to, get it? I would have loved to, and I've tried really, really hard to stay in spaces, especially in the strength and conditioning world. I've been an athlete and a coach. I've been a coach since I was 14, and I'm 45. So it's been a long time. I've been trying to fit into these really normative spaces and just make it work because this is who I am. I'm a strength and conditioning coach. And it got to a point where either I tried something different or something different would happen. And so both of those things aligned. I pulled away from the normative spaces. I stopped working in other people's studios. I found some kind of courage and enough stupidity to try this on my own. I wished so hard that I could have somebody else do this with me, but that person did not yet exist. I still haven't found that person. So I've had to do it on my own.
A drug dealer and a gangster for 12 years of my life. Went to jail 2 times, got beat up a lot. Ended up arrested maybe 24 times, going to jail 5 or 6 times. So I was chasing something, and I was finding it in other people, but I need to find it for myself first. And then somebody said once is you create what you need in this world. So I needed safety, security, community. So everything I build is around that. So I have a group workout in the morning that's not a group workout. I have the same people for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years that have come to my workouts every morning. They don't skip a beat because it's a community. They come in, we do a workout, we all go for coffee after, and they get to see their friends, their family. And we do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I have not skipped a workout day. Even tomorrow with the storm, I have not skipped a workout day because I know it's as important to me as it is to them. So I'm not building a business. I'm not building something that's, I didn't build this financially at all. I just built it because I needed it. And I built it because I saw what I was getting from people, and what I was giving to them was worth more than anything else I could have had in this world. So building health, hugs, care, kindness, and I get to go do that for work is fascinating. So I want to keep doing that in as many places as I can. So my workout group is my first taste of it. Then I started trying other things, and I also was learning as I was growing. So when we say about starting a business, I had no long-term goal. I had no goal. I just kind of walked into it and I feel it out. So sometimes when they say you need a long-term goal, sometimes you just need to get in there and feel things out and see, and then you'll get to understand where you're going after. I had no clue where I was going, but I just knew it felt right. And I was following this more than I was following this. And whenever I follow this, I usually mess things up, then I come back here again, so it's this back and forth conversation. Through just being a personal trainer and talking to people, I got to meet hundreds of people in all kinds of places. More opportunities opened up, and I just followed them. So it led to me leading the men's group, so Male Movement. It's been 4 years, it's a passion project. I love what I do, don't make any money from it, but I love what I do. And through that, he got to follow me and reach out. So it's not, some people always say it's a long goal. Long goal will come as you go. If you find what you care for, it'll feel good in the moment, and you'll be able to create from here, and you'll be able to follow here, and then that will lead you to a desire for more, a want for more, a care for more. Your motivation comes naturally, and it just feels right. So that was my path into here. And I think I've said enough for now, so let's try it.
I just realized you guys are both sharing slippers again.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it.
Thank you.
You're so cute. It was beautiful. I think listening to you guys speak, realizing that like there's one common theme that I think is true across the board, and it's community. At the end of the day, like I think, so I made the transition, I guess, as COVID kind of like was the big brunt of it, where we were in lockdown and spending time alone, and I worked this intense corporate job where I was working like 10 hours a day, sitting at a screen, sitting down. My body's aching, I'm like in my mid-20s, and I feel like I'm completely breaking apart and needing to find a greater purpose and needing to connect with people in this period of full isolation. And when studios started opening up, I kind of took it as like a side hustle thing. I'm like, I could teach a yoga class somewhere in a studio for fun, and showing up in those harder periods and having an influence or having an impact on like 20 people that come to me once a week just gave me so much more purpose and fulfillment than this corporate job that I was spending the majority of my time doing. I grew up in the movement space. I grew up dancing competitively. I always loved movement, intuitive movement, to understand how my body feels. And in this period of like darkness and isolation where my body was breaking down, I came back to movement for myself. And I took up running, I took up yoga, I went geeked out on anatomy a little bit, and I was learning all these really cool things about myself and trying to heal myself. Oh my God, you're so cute. And starting to like fix myself, starting to feel like this light come back where movement was really healing and connecting with community was also really healing. And then I realized that the things that I was learning was also having an impact on other people. And that was really cool to be able to share like the things that worked for me with other people and like just like lean on the social aspect that we should all be doing as humans, and stepping away from this like toxic grind and this toxic hustle of just like climbing this invisible ladder that honestly was never one of my goals to begin with, but felt almost like imposed on me from immigrant parents that needed safety and security in their life, and the pace of a sales job and how like you could get wrapped up into it so quickly and honestly forget about yourself as an individual. And as soon as I was able to connect back with humans and build a community and regain my purpose, I think that it just felt so natural and so intuitive for me to develop and want to give it more energy. So despite working 50 plus hours in the corporate job, I was stoked to go teach in the evenings. Even if that meant my workday was like 15 hours, I was like, I love this. And then the time that it took to take the full transition was long. Like it was like 3 years of doing both of them and taking on different certifications and investing my money into learning more about the body so that I could become better as an instructor, until it felt like the right time to actually do the switch and actually be like, okay, I'm going to bet on myself and I'm going to invest even more time and energy to see if this can actually turn into something else. But the fact that it was rooted in passion and fulfillment of community, the outcome was automatically success. Like there's no other way around it. Like it's what lights me up. It's what I'm meant to do. It's what feels good. It's what fulfills me. It's what allows me to give back to community. And every day is a lesson. Every step is a progress to where I'm trying to go. And where I am right now is not where I want to end. It constantly adapts, it constantly shifts, but at least I'm on this path that feels good, and I'm constantly curating a better path so that aligns even more with me, and that adapts based on how I grow, the people that I meet, the community that builds. But I think community seems to be like the driving factor to why we do this. And I think if you find your people, if you lean on your people and you identify what your passion is, the outcome could only be positive. So that's my like high level. I don't trust myself to do that.
I loved hearing about each of your stories, because really it's the stories that are our driver, right? Who we are, and also our why. And having such a strong why is so important before you devote desire and devotion to a craft. And so I'm curious, Ashley, if there's, let's say, creative entrepreneurs in the crowd right now where they're thinking more about, okay, I'm itching to get started, or I just started, but man, this is freaking tough. I'm curious, like if you were to look back at your younger version of yourself as a creative entrepreneur, I'm curious to get each of your perspectives of what advice would have given yourself at that point in time, because it is so overwhelming. Like we're not just doing even our passion craft. There's like then the social media, there's the business, there's the community, there's all these multi-assets. So I'm curious, just to hear what advice you'd give anyone that's in the crowd.
It's a good question, and one I've thought about of if I could pop in to see my younger self, what would I tell them? And now that you answer it intuitively, I would say I would mind my own business. I would not actually go tell her anything, because I really don't think that she had it figured out 5 years ago. And it took going through different experiences to be like, this way, let's go that way, let's try this out. And I think now owning my own studio, and yes, managing the social media and the accounting and then the learning and development and all those aspects are, yes, part of my business and part of my job right now. But starting off, if I had to consider all those things, I probably wouldn't have ventured into this, because it's too many things to figure it out. I think your focus is identify what your passion is and just take a step. You don't need to accomplish all the steps. Take a step towards this passion, this goal that you want to accomplish, without overthinking it. And if it's a flop, it's a flop, and you readjust because you've realized what doesn't work, and that is also a step forward. Don't get overwhelmed too much about all the different pillars that go into being an entrepreneur. Figure out a pillar, do it well, move on to the next thing, and just grow every day from there. I think try to stay away from the large picture, the long-term goal, reel it back, do one thing at a time. And so I wouldn't say anything to my younger self. I would let her figure it out, because she did well. Right here.
She got some. So I had more of a yo-yo journey. I was the in and out, like, oh my God, okay, I'm gonna do this. No. So I think it would be learn to trust yourself. It's gonna test the crap out of you all the time. And you're gonna be like, but again, let my head get out of the way and learn to trust what I'm feeling, what I'm understanding, where I wanna go, and understanding that failure is gonna happen every 5 seconds. Literally, you're gonna feel like a failure all the time. But knowing that I put myself on the right path, I'm gonna fail, but I trust myself to still succeed. I trust myself to wake up in the morning and take that next step, and you're going to learn a lot about yourself. So it's a beautiful, terrible journey. You're going to be like, wow, I'm an idiot, and I'm amazing at the same time. You're going to have multiple conversations with yourself all the time, but you're going to learn so much about who you are, what you want to do, where you want to go, that the journey is worth it, because that's part of life. You want to learn more about yourself. You don't want to sit a 9-to-5 job and not learn anything and hate yourself. By the end of this lifetime, I want to know everything about me. So putting myself in scenarios that are going to be high pressure, tension, learning, I feel like I fail all the time. Always. I think there's one win for every 100, but I also learned that all those small, micro little steps count more than the big win. So I'm always looking at the smallest little viable thing, and I'm learning that every day I still wake up and show up for myself, and that's a win. I'm learning that I'm going to mess up and still do it the next day. That's a win. So count your wins and really learn to trust yourself. That's the best thing I would hopefully tell myself. I'd probably still end up doing the same mistakes anyway, so.
Thanks. You two speak very well, and so relatable on all topics. And as I was listening, I'm trying to also think about mine, but like there's similarities and there's also big differences. I mean, my like entrepreneurial debut happened when I was 14, and so it's been a long time since then. So if I could go back and talk to like the the early entrepreneurial Heidi, I mean, first of all, there was like some devastating stuff that was going on then. Like I didn't know myself, and I didn't know myself until recently. I mean, from like my sexual orientation, my gender, how I'm supposed to show up in this world, who I'm supposed to show up for, and then like sifting through the stories that everybody else was telling me and how I was supposed to be, but it not making any sense to me. So like wearing this kind of costume all the time, and then people being like, well, what do you want? And you're like, I don't even know who I am. You know, like I didn't know. So finding oneself when you have grown so far from who that kid was takes a lot of time. And for me at the beginning of my, like this new part of being an entrepreneur, of like owning my own studio, but that's not when it all started. This has been going on for decades. Like I would have stepped in it would have been different for me. I would have stepped the fuck in, and I would have been like, kiddo, you're coming with me. We're going to give you space to figure out who you are, what you want to happen to you and your body, how you want to show up. I would have stepped in big time, because that's not what I had. So I've been experimenting a lot, and so if I could go back to the 5 year ago version of me, I would say everything that you did was building up to this moment, and not a lot of people are going to agree with what you're doing, and a lot of people are going to tell you to go against, to not do it, because what I'm doing is unique, and it scares a lot of people, because it's not the conservative way of doing business, and you're not serving a community that can generally they're like, go for the people that can really spend a lot of money, be fancy, be this, be that. There's a lot of people that are already doing that. That's not why I'm here. I'm here for something different. So I would just say you're gonna eat a lot of shit. No one's gonna trust you. Stay close to the people that love you. Go to fucking therapy. Yeah, sure, yeah, honestly. Because all the other stuff, like you too, you gotta go through it, you gotta learn it. But I was getting in my own way because I was too scared to let everybody down and be a disappointment. And I was just too scared to be myself. Once I got a little bit more confidence that I can show up as a queer entrepreneur and a queer coach, and it's not exclusively a queer gym, so if there's folks in the room that don't identify as such but you want to come and work out with us, I mean, we're not all gay. We actually want everybody in there as a full container of all kinds of people, which is a multi-crop culture, and that's what's going to, in my opinion, heal the world. But yeah, gay. So there's a lot of glitter. So be gay, be queer, get glittery, dance party, put dildos on the wall, have fun. Yeah, it's fun. We have a good time. It's super fun. But yeah, that's what I would tell myself, is just it's gonna be fucking terrifying, but so is everything else. So just let's go. Yeah.
I appreciate hearing all of your perspectives, and I really think there is no perfect advice, right? So just, you have to kind of be like a kid. You got to kind of be playful, experiment. It's okay for there to be unknowns. And I think you guys kind of navigated that in terms of even saying figuring out who you are. It's part of the journey, or who your brand is, or who you want to attract. And that makes me think of a follow-up question. If we think about maybe thinking about when you were starting to evolve and, get a bit better idea of who you are, I find values, being value-driven, really impacts, how we show up or what we create. And I'm curious, to get your perspectives on, when did you figure out what values stood out to you, or how did you integrate those even to your communities that really drive you to sustain through the emotional highs and lows of entrepreneurship? Who wants to start?
It's my turn.
All right.
Repeat the question so I can get one more wrap around my head.
More how did you navigate the highs and lows?
Oh god. Values drove.
Based off of your values.
So how to navigate highs and lows is, I would say, get tools. So you learn a lot of things about life, and you learn what tool will help you for certain things. I had zero tools until 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I had a great emotional breakdown, and then I started finding tools. Tools are lovely. So breath work is a great one. The reason why I train is because I have an extremely high amount of energy, and if I don't, my anxiety goes buck wild. So it's a tool. It's not just a form of fitness. I do not do training for how I look. It's a bonus. I do training for how I feel, and every time I train, I feel way better. So my highs and lows, again, it comes back to, do I know myself well enough to put myself in a dangerous scenario that feels dangerous? Because entrepreneurship will feel dangerous to your nervous system. It's going to be setting off all kinds of things at all times. 10 minutes ago, I was I got to talk to people. Calm down, you're cool, it's fine. But when you know that I'm going to put myself in scenarios. I have tools to help myself get out. Your brain has a fascinating way of wiring itself. So once you've done these tools multiple times, it knows how to get there more often. So if I do my breathwork practice regularly, which I did for years, I've kind of backed off a little bit. My brain now knows how to access calm. So it finds its way to get calm faster. So the more you get to use those tools, the more your brain will find that place instead of finding the crazy it's been its whole life. I'm learning my values now. I'm a 47-year-old human, and I didn't grow up around them. I'll share that often. I didn't have these things. So my values have come through trial and error, but I also see the people who I surround myself with now have the same values I do. So community, care, kindness, and I'm huge on communication. So that's why I think I love having my same group. We communicate a lot. Like, we talk about everything. Even now I'm still learning. So like, I went through a breakup not too long ago. As a guy, you shut down, you don't talk. I'm like, Charo, what's your rule? You like to communicate. It's a value, so communicate more. So I've learned to be, I'll say this, I finally showed emotion, which was great, but I didn't realize that emotion isn't being vulnerable. Vulnerable comes through me saying something and showing it and asking somebody to come towards me to help me out. I can say that I'm sad, but can I ask you to help? Is a different step. So I've learned that communicating scares the crap out of me, and saying what I need from my friends, my people, my society, my everybody is going to make me want to cry, make me feel insecure, but I'm giving them a chance to come meet me, and then I feel way better. And this is my practice lately. So my big word is always communication. I'm going to communicate as much as I can. And then when I get to communicate, I get to ask people to meet me where I need to be met. So business partners, same thing. I'm working with 3 other guys in mail. I got to communicate the crap out of that one. We're big characters. We're trying to figure out stuff, and it's challenging. I also have a new project that's coming up that's in April, and I have a partner there. And we've learned, because we've done this multiple times, that we communicate really well. So it's really easy with him. But I will always try to invite somebody into my world by telling them what I need. So that was mine. Did I cover that?
Appreciate that.
Left or right?
I don't mind going. It's like, okay. I might take a little bit of a different approach with this question and go, I guess, a little bit more specifically in my field of work, in my day-to-day, and what happens in my Pilates studio currently, which Pilates is just so big and trendy, and I think I've seen maybe a dozen Pilates studios open just in the last 6 months. And so being very clear on my core values and how I incorporate that in my business has been super important. It's something that I've adapted over the years. I think core values when I was 16 versus now being 30 have grown and evolved as well, and identifying in corporate world, okay, financial was a big thing, and security and stable money and stable income was important, but then shifting into recognizing that there's other core values that are important. That is really what drove, I guess, the transition of it. And if you guys have more specific questions on how those developed, I'm happy to dive into it a little bit more, but I do want to talk a little bit more present. Sarah and I did talk a little bit about it earlier, and so I just want to repeat it, because I think it is a value, especially when you are starting to build your own business and try to stay true to what you do without getting too carried away with imposter syndrome and comparison, which I think is a big part of entrepreneurship and something to be mindful of. I recognize that for me, my why of why I'm in this practice was because I healed my body, and I'm interested in understanding the human mechanism a little bit better so that I could feel stronger, so that I could live a longer life. And that then transcended into being able to share that information with other people so that they feel empowered, so that you feel stronger in your body. And I think it's just basic information that we aren't taught as a collective growing up. We aren't taught what are the right foods to be eating. We aren't taught what are the right movements that are needed. We sometimes lose weight in a very unhealthy way. We sometimes push our bodies in a very intense manner because of anxiety and stress too. A lot of us do look towards intense movement because we feel anxious, and sometimes that does take a toll on us physically. And I know that during COVID, when I did go back into movement, I was intense about it, and my body transformed really, really fast in a short period of time because I was not healthy with it. And so realizing that those are my core values as an instructor, and I want to make sure that I lead by example when people come into my space. And seeing all these really great studios open up, and Heidi, to your point of like not necessarily entertaining the wealthy aesthetics that is movement, or Pilates specifically in my case, or not entertain the physical aesthetics results that a lot of people come into Pilates for the first time to do, and actually staying true to my certifications, my knowledge around body, and how inspiring and passionate I am of those things, and not trying to mimic something else in the industry that is doing well just because I think that that's what the people need, but rather stay true to like what I think is valuable about this, and make sure that I'm staying true to those teachings. And being confident that the people that want to learn that will stay, and the people that don't will find another space to learn from, because there's enough business to go around, and I know I'm really good at what I do, and I don't need to adapt and change it because it doesn't align with what other people are doing. So staying very true to those core values as far as like why I am in this, and not trying to sway away because of the pressure of being successful and the pressure of business. Because I think the more authentic you are, the more genuine that's going to come off, and the more successful you could be as well in that. So.
Thank you. Yeah, as an extension to all of that, I mean,
Just gotta say hi.
hey, dude, come here, get your. Do you see his mohawk? He's all fired up right now. No, hey, dude, get back here.
The big coat.
Come here right now. Thank you. Sorry. He's the boss. I'm not the boss. The energy that we put out is what comes back, right? So again, for so long, I was in these other studios, trying to feed a community that didn't even acknowledge so much about me. They didn't even know that people like me existed. So I was trying to like either impress or get them to hire me, or I was trying to give them something that they were really not really interested in. And it doesn't even mean that what they were interested in was wrong or bad. It was just like how many people have you dated? They weren't all matches. So I was putting a lot of energy into things that didn't make sense. So my values right now, and I believe they always have been, and I'm more aware of them, is based on the fact that I think that the fitness industry, and I'm going to say that, I think is a really terrifying place for most people, if not all. And if it isn't, then wow, good, lucky you. So for me, movement has always been a way for me to connect to my body. It has been a way for me to be in community. It has helped to heal a lot of the illnesses that I've had, spiritual, physical, communal, and same values that you guys have spoken of already. Community is really important, but to decolonize the fitness industry, to gay that shit up a little bit, to open the eyes of the folks around us that there are so many barriers that stop people from coming into these spaces, that if we could really figure out, and it's not for me to say, like my skinny white ass isn't gonna have all the answers. I have to, I gotta figure out what's getting in the way of me understanding what's going on. Like where's my privilege and where's my access getting in the way of it? Like what are the things that I don't even know? And there's a ton of it. And I'm really lucky because my friend group, my social group is quite vast, and there's a lot of different people that I'm close to, and I ask them like, what is it that's getting in the way? And so for me, eliminating those barriers, those are my values. Like that's what I value, is creating access, eliminating the barriers, and that comes with like communication, transparency, consent, curiosity, kindness. And if I'm not showing up that way, it's going to be reflected in my business. And because I have stopped chase because the things that I wanted weren't there. I had to run after everyone. I promised myself I don't do that anymore. So my landscape has changed. Not just my personal landscape, my family dynamic has shifted, but my work. I mean, the people that come into my studio, it's like I'm blown away. I'm blown away by it. I'm really excited about it. And I used to want to work with like high level this or really, strong outlet. I don't give a shit anymore. I just want people that are scared to go into spaces, to want to come into a space and connect. And for me, that's what's important. So if I can stay true to my values all the time, every decision I make, I'm asking like, well, is this align with the world that I want to be in? No? Well, I don't fucking do it. And I really am strict with that because I've been loose in the past in every way. And the things that have come into me have been really harmful. And so I'm very careful with who I like, how I invite people into the space. There have been situations in the past where there's someone that has crossed the line of consent, crossed the line of transparency, and I've had to call them in and have a discussion. And in the end, they were like, well, I just don't think this place is for me anymore. And I was like, I think that you're right, sir. I think that you're right. And that's okay. But before, that would scare me because I wouldn't want them to go around and talk about me being some big dyke kicking them out of their studio, and it's on, I used to get scared of that. But right now, my values are stronger than trying to impress or make somebody feel more comfortable instead of creating as much, bravery and safety as possible. So staying in line with that has been nice and helpful because now the crowd's fucking cool. Really cool. Yeah. I think that's
There seems to be like a great understanding of who you are. Like the three of you really have a great understanding. You're very mindful and intentional. And even though it's maybe been, a navigation of figuring out yourself more and getting more clear, it's pretty obvious just based off some of the things that you said. But something that I am curious to dive maybe a little bit more in is if we think about, let's say in your own journeys, when there's a high where we get a lot of dopamine of, oh wow, this is going really, really well for my business right now. Or maybe it's not even business, maybe it's even just impact on a community that you're building. So the highs, but then also the lows where it's the complete opposite, right? Where probably a lot of creative entrepreneurs in the crowd could relate to this, where we feel lonely. We feel we're doing all these micro improvements and there's no instant gratification. Can you think of both, a success story as well as the complete opposite of when you had, that high or that low? But then also, how did you sustain, the mindset of whether it's a high or a low, staying in the game?
Fix it. Some people do. But for me, that was both the lowest of the low and then coming out of it, the highest of the high. I think that the things that I guess I've had enough experience now with both really, really highs and really, really lows to know that nothing is permanent. Everything is just flowing. Now, to tell anyone, or if anyone had ever told me, whoa, kid, don't worry, this is not going to stay this way. It was you're not in it, you don't know. So I'm really devastated right now, and I can't just breathe myself out of it. I didn't have those tools. For me, having enough experience of being at the top of the mountain and 6 feet under, I'm well, nothing's ever gonna last. I'm not always gonna be dead, and I'm not always gonna be alive. I'm always gonna be flowing in between those two spectrums, or along that spectrum, truly. So I think that remembering in the really dark moments to take a little bit of a step back. Again, I'm fortunate enough that I have the experience now to be able to do that. So again, everyone's going to be in their own part of their journey where they have the ability to disconnect a little bit and look. seeing what I've already done, and like we're all adults here. We've all done extremely hard things and survived. You're all here. We can do crazy stuff. Like our bodies can go through a wild amount of discomfort. I think I just have to keep on remembering that, like, I could always get through something really, really hard because it's only going to be a second, and maybe I'll blink and tomorrow it's going to be a bit better, and then a bit better. But if I stay in the spiral of despair, then I can't get out of it. So, and then if I stay up too high, then I'm kind of like hit off guard when something shitty happens. You're like, I thought I was really doing great. Why is this happening now? But it's always going to happen. You're always going to get the rug pulled out from under you. And then the next day you're going to, like, everything's going to line up. So I guess, like, a quick example, I had to get a really big loan, and I've never dealt with this much money in my life. I've dealt with very little money in my life. And so the loan went through. Oh my God. I signed this lease, and we're paying a contractor to build a huge new gym, and it is nuts. I'm losing my mind. I'm shitting my pants every day. But then they're like, no, you got it. You got the money. Let's go. And I'm like, okay, contractor, start doing the work. And then I'm like giving the invoices to the bank, and the bank is like, oh, there's a delay. And the contractor's like, but I got to buy the plumbing stuff, and the plumber needs a 40% deposit, and that's like $35,000. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And so I'm losing my mind. I'm sweating. I'm like kind of shitty to my girlfriend. Don't talk to me, parents. Gotta walk the dog. And that's all happening in like 7 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours. And then I wake up the next morning and there's like $80,000 in my bank account. And I'm like, okay, so we're good. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not my money. It's not mine. It's got to go back. So I don't have $80,000. But so I don't know. Am I answering the question? Like the highs are so good. You're like, it happened. I'm getting all of this, and then the next day they're like, you don't get it yet, and you're like, but I said. So it's, I don't know. I feel crazy right now.
I feel crazy all the time.
Okay. Basically, we build resilience. So the more things that we experience, the more resilient we become. So the world gives you the things that you need to do. This is me having like some faith in not a sky daddy God, but some different kind of God. But I mean, I like the idea of a sky daddy with like a glitter beard. But like the world gives you the things that you need to do to be able to deal with the shit that's coming your way. And we got to just kind of go through it. And the more we resist it, the less we're learning in that moment. I don't know. Yeah, that's it. I think that's good. Thanks.
Perfect. Hello. I mean, life's interesting. You're gonna end up there. You're gonna end up a lot of places you never thought you're gonna be. It's kind of life. And I hope you end up in places you never thought you were gonna be. Like when you grew up when you were a kid, you're like, I want to be a fireman. I'm like, no, I didn't want to be that anymore. It was just kind of there. So you're going to put yourself in scenarios as you grow. So I started as a personal trainer because it was good for me. I realized that I had alcohol addiction problems. I was a complete disastrous mess. I started playing volleyball, and then I was like, ooh, this feels good again. And I went back to the things that felt good. So playing volleyball, I wanted to beat everybody on the volleyball court. I didn't have the skill, but I can outwork them. So I went to the gym. And then all my friends were like, how the hell did you do that? And that's how I became a trainer. It was a good experience, but then I realized how a mess my head was. I was great. Physically, I looked fantastic. Mentally, disastrous. So I was also training clients day after day after day. You realize it's like therapy. You come in, especially with one-on-one clients, you are spending your whole hour, and if they had a bad day, you know about their bad day. And if they have a bad week, you know about their bad week. So you are becoming very much involved in their entire world, and I love that. But I didn't know how to help them. So then I said, what's the next step? The next step, I wanted to be a life coach. So I studied to be a life coach so I can now have conversations about them, and I didn't want to hurt them. So I can say I can fix you, but I don't believe we all can unless we have the right tools. So a lot of people want to give information. We're not supposed to tell somebody what to do. We're supposed to help them figure out what they need to do for themselves. So that was a beautiful thing. And during my life coach and figuring it out, I realized that all my pain usually comes from here. It's me. It's my head. It's my problem. So when I'm hitting my lows, I've learned that it's me. So I have to talk to myself. And I have to learn about myself, and I have to be curious, and I have to be playful, and I have to be kind. So I really spent a lot of time learning about my head and how of a mess it is, but how fantastically fast it can turn around and learn. If you are willing to see that pain point and be like, I have an opportunity right now to change this. That whole story that came before me, I'm being put pressure on right here. This is where I get to change. So when I sit there and something comes up now, I'm like, ooh, I'm not mad at it. I'm like, oh, you're going to freak me out. Yeah. But I'm like also going, if I make this choice right here to take this the way I want to handle the rest of my life, I'm no longer going to let those stories take over. So every time a pressure point comes up, and it's fantastic because I'm like, oh, I hate you. And I'm like, oh no, okay, wait, okay, let's get a little bit curious. Let's jump into this. And now what's the choice I want to make here and now? And then repeat that. If you repeat that same thing 5 times, you no longer hate that moment. You're going to love that moment. You're going to be like, I have now, I am the king of this moment. And then you're going to want to do those things again. So when I sit there and I create a YouTube channel, I fucked up the whole thing multiple times. I was like, oh, I hate myself. I'm like, no, you're learning. Be nice. That's your inside talk. You're looking at the past. How do you want to take this now? And what do you need? How do you want to change this? Where do you want to go? So I've learned that those pressure points are opportunities to become who you want to be. So that's how I get out of the bottom.
Holding it on, can't drop the mic. How do I want to answer this question? I guess 2 sides to it. The first one, the way I see it, is the reason why I ventured into this business is because I chose this business and I decided I wanted to do this. And I have sometimes a little bit of a nihilist mindset where we're all on a floating rock and nothing really matters and the world is monopoly, and I try not to take it too seriously, and I feel privileged and grateful to have been like, what is my passion? And I want to explore my passion. I think there is like a lot of privilege in that life that I have. And so if I look at the day-to-day and I get granular and I'm like, gosh, shit, like I just have to teach like 8-hour days, and that's like a really heavy load for me, and I come back and I'm socially exhausted because yes, people take it as therapy sessions and I gotta like speak and be on my feet, and then yes, I have to go home and walk the dog and do all these things, and like I could bury myself in all of those negative thoughts and tasks that I have to do and think of it as a negative and think it as a low in my career. Or I could also just shift my perspective and recognize that it is a decision that I made to be in this life and to do this kind of work, and to not be so much in my head about it and actually reel it back in and recognize that it isn't so low, and it's actually so cool that I get to do this and experience long days and work through this business that I'm creating and try to adapt over time. So in periods of lows and highs, really just remember that this is the choice that I made, and it is a privilege to be doing this day in and day out. And I think time has an interesting way of evolving what you consider a high and what you consider a low. I think when I first opened my studio, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be busy, and I was teaching like 1 or 2 classes a day, and then just like feeling kind of like without meaning because I'm like, I'm not busy, no one's really coming to it. And then things start rolling, and now I look at it, and the last 3 days I've taught 8 classes back to back the 3 days, and I'm like, why like what? Sorry,
In this weather as well.
yeah, in this weather as well. Yeah, no, crazy things. But a period where I thought that this teaching that many classes was going to be my high, and now in retrospect I'm like, no, this is a low. This is not great. Like I'm burnt. But then stepping away from it and being like, wow, yes, pat on the back. Let's go skiing tonight because I need some play and I need to enjoy life and I need to tap back into my childish self. because we're all just on a floating rock and it really doesn't matter. And recognizing, okay, like this is not sustainable to be teaching this many hours in this many days. And now I'm at that 6-point mark where I'm like, okay, how could I adapt my business to be more sustainable, to feel better, so that it doesn't feel hard and it doesn't feel like this is a low, even though it's something that I wished for. So it's pivoting and it's adapting, and it's knowing that you have the tools and the power to shift your business when you are in periods of low, and don't sit in it. Like, the language you use around a low is super important to what it does to your mindset. And if it feels shitty, pivot, do something about it, or don't, but also try to speak positively about it if you're not going to make those changes.
Yeah, no, that was great. Sometimes the lows are the thing that's going to inspire like the next great move.
It is.
Yeah. One of the things that's become like very apparent is that there aren't a lot of like queer coaches or bigger bodied coaches or neurodivergent coaches or coaches that are living in wheelchairs or name the marginalized community. We don't have a lot of those. And so when I'm like looking around and being like without appropriating people, I'm like, where are you? I feel very fucking alone. Because then coaches that come in, I have to educate them on the importance of trauma-informed communication and coaching styles. I've got, so it's isolating, alienating, and then you're like, where is everyone? But what that's done is help to fuel a really raging fire inside of me that wants this thing to grow so big that we like work with children, we get like families, people around that are going to bring their friends in. They're all of a sudden going to start moving their bodies and be like, oh, this feels great. And oh, I'm a teacher. This could be transferable into being a coach. And then all of a sudden we have coaches that we've built that are going to be around for like the next generation. And then young kids are going to be coming up and they're going to be in a space and seeing like people that they relate to. Like they're going to have representation. And then all of a sudden we're going to have a ton of coaches that they don't just look like bumpy, muscly, whatever, two-legged, we're walking around on two legs kind of people. You know what I mean? So that was really, really hard and very alienating, but it helped to fuel a fire, a necessity, a gap. And that's, again, like one of the things that's getting me very excited. And it's from something that's really shitty. So again, there's like a way of flipping things. Yeah.
I loved hearing about your mindsets and how you navigate the highs and lows. I think it's very important for sustainability. But something that I am curious to ask for like a final question is, I also think it's important. Sometimes we're in it for the long game. So we have the right values, we have the right creative passion, but we're realizing the long game is really freaking long. And we're learning. We're climbing, we're falling, we're climbing, we're falling. But a question I have is, I'm curious to get your perspectives, whether they're aligned or different, on the difference between you integrate speed and endurance in the long game. Because I think there is a time and place to go quick, and there is a time and place to go slow, to go intentional, to go patient. So I'm curious, first off, if you even agree or disagree with that. And if you want to add anything related to yourself or your business related to speed and endurance in the long game process. Does anyone want to start?
Good question. I think that for me, understanding like operations, like the like deep business side of things, which I never understood before. I'm a coach. I was never in business. I'm not a business person, but I am now. So honestly, if you don't have those skills or tools, it's not to say, well, go learn them, You will learn them in time if you're working with someone that can help you. So for me, it was finding someone that I trusted enough to bring on the team to help me understand the operations of like what needs to happen when. So there is some kind of organization, some kind of like a calendar or schedule, and that's when you could see what you need to go fast with and what you can really let grow organically. I find that what we do is a lot of building relationships, so those things don't happen quickly. That's like the long game, is building lasting, organic, authentic relationships. That takes a long time because we are all coming from experiences of, trust issues and such. It takes a second. And we dip our toe in, we get a little scared, we try again, scared. But over time, those experiences turn into long-lasting bonds, or they shift into something different. And that's good, but those things take time. Figuring out like a schedule of like when you need to move things and buy things and that takes an operations person. So it's knowing what is more of like the practical stuff and what is the stuff that's all about heart and connection, I think. Yeah, money happens fast. And goes away fast. And friendships, those take time and they last. Yeah. Bumper sticker.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how I want to respond to this one.
More time in chat. I'm here.
Yeah, you feel good about it? Okay, there.
I was being polite because I was like, oh, we're all going in patterns. So the cool thing is I have multiple ideas and businesses. So I'm working on 3. Like I have my personal training business, I didn't know was long-term, but it's been 12 years. I just kind of keep on showing up and having fun and doing it and showing up and I never thought long-term. It just ended up being the longest relationship I've had, technically. And it's there and I love it. And like I said, I have clients for 6 years, 7 years. So some things you're going to hop into and you're going to have a goal. You're going to have an idea. It's going to be clear. Other things are going to be spare of the moment, desires, passions, and you're going to hop in and they'll have a short fuse, long fuse. But it's cool because since I'm in 3 projects, like I do mail at one point I tried to do it alone. And they say alone you go faster and together you go farther. So I managed to push the needle faster, but I also burnt myself out quicker. And then I had to trust other people to come on board and take them in and then think about other people. So now we're planning and all of a sudden there's a long-term plan. So the long-term is coming out of it. So, and then there's one project that I've been waiting for 6 years that just opened up now, but it needs 4 months. I have to be on this project for the next 4 months for it to open up in April. So it's each project, once you can understand them, you'll be able to like, okay, I need to give you all my love right now. You're going to get all of me. Everything else puts on the side. And then other ones, so it's like your health. If you built a really good health base, you can maintain that. So like my health is at a good spot. I don't need to go to the gym 9 hours a week. I know I can maintain it 3 to 4 workouts and it's fine. That's what my workout group is now. My workout group, I don't need to put hundreds of hours. I could just show up, consistent community, it's there, it's good. So I can kind of put that on the back burner and give more percentage to the other ones. So each project you go in, because I don't think anybody's going to have only one project. Most of us have multiple things happening. You're going to be able to be like, this needs my care urgent and important. This needs a little more flow and consistency. And this I've been doing for so long, I know I can just give it, this is what it needs from me all the time. So you'll find different ways with different things. You just have to be open to understanding it. And one thing I did learn, you can't control anything. As much as you want to, you can't control anything. So being able to just like release the wheel a little bit, release what you think is going to be, and give it room and follow that a little bit. You put the plan out there, but I'm sure everybody had a plan and they wound up like way miles away. I am nowhere close to where I was before. So if I can just let go and see, something will happen, and then I can follow it a little bit more. That's good.
That's okay. I was hoping to have like a more structured method to provide for you guys, but the reality is I'm just a girl and I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's really true. I think at the root of it, I'm a big dreamer. I I have aspirations on where what I see myself accomplishing and what I see myself doing. And I think all the things that I've done in my life have been this like really big hairy ass goal or big dream that I've like made more realistic by like, okay, that's not gonna work, and then I could crystallize an actual goal for me to pursue. And if you would have asked me even just a year ago if I would have been here, I would have said no. If you would have asked me 5 years ago, and I would have said no. And I really just don't, if I were to set long-term goals, either I would be too frugal about it and too safe about it, or it would be completely unrealistic. I think tapping into the core values that I've set up at the beginning have been what has paved the way for what I'm doing, and being also open to adapting, also open to play, so that the goal itself could pivot and shift with time. I really don't know what even the next year looks like, but I know that there's still a lot of things that I need to figure out and decide where I want to niche and where I want to focus in on. And I still think there's a lot of groundwork that I need to be doing before I could set long-term goals. It's starting to crystallize. I'm starting to realize that like I really love working with professional athletes and giving Pilates and movement to that field. And I also really love working with other instructors, and I've just found myself being really, I feel like this is a weird thing to say. I find myself trying to be very generous with my knowledge, because I didn't necessarily have anybody in my early days being that for me. It's a very competitive industry, and it kind of makes you feel icky growing or learning from people who don't really want to share information with you. So I want to be that role for other people. And so acknowledging those two things are starting to crystallize a long-term goal for me and where I see my studio going, but it's just so early days still. And it's just been fun adapting and playing and figuring out what I like and what I don't like, and not being rigid with what long-term goals I've set out. I worked at Lululemon growing up, and goal setting was always a big core value in what they do as a company. And we had to set 1-year goals, 3-year goals, and 5-year goals on a personal, professional, and health, I think. And they were rigid, right? Like in 1 year, I am this, or in 5 years, I am doing that. And I found myself updating my goal sheet every 3 months, because I was like, well, that doesn't apply anymore. That's out in the trash. Who said that? And so I think ever since then, realizing that having such rigid goals is not how I function. I like to be fluid. I like to be adaptive, because I think it gives me the opportunity to grow even more. So my answer to that is no long-term goals, just fun.
I love that. I just want to close out and give my opinion as well. I really think playfulness, right? Even when we're kids, we're taught how to play. And so how can we always find ways to not forget that, rather than being, again, too rigid, like you said, or too hyper-focused? You're then missing out, right? You end up going from, you think you're making it clear, but now you're like, actually, I'm not accepting or being open to other routes or opportunities. So to allow playfulness so you don't miss out on those opportunities, I think is super, super crucial. But I think we have some really good questions in the crowd. So before we end off, if we could just get a huge applause, to all of your amazing thoughts and perspectives.